You know, nature can be a real trickster sometimes, like playing a massive game of hide and seek.
Right.
And today, we're diving deep into one of those mysteries. Have you heard of the desert rat-kangaroo?
Oh, absolutely a fascinating case.
It's a creature that's basically a real-life Lazarus species. Declared extinct, then rediscovered, and now, well, it might be playing hide and seek again.
It really shows you how much we still don't know about life on Earth, especially in places like the Australian outback.
For sure. So imagine this, a tiny kangaroo hopping through the red sands of the Sturt Stony Desert in Australia.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
That's our little mystery star, the desert rat-kangaroo, also called Ungudlukanta by the Wankangurujarluyandi people. Officially, it was labeled extinct back in 1994. Predation, habitat loss, the usual suspects. But then there were some, whispers, unsubstantiated sightings in the Lake Eyre Basin.
Yeah, those sightings really reignited the interest in this species. I know researchers at Flinders University have been, they've been digging deep trying to find this elusive creature.
And they've got some new research out in the Journal of Experimental Biology. And it focuses on something, maybe a bit unexpected. The desert rat-kangaroo's skull.
Interesting.
What could a skull tell us about a creature that might have been gone for decades?
Oh, more than you might think. The shape of a skull, the structure, it's like a blueprint for an animal's lifestyle and diet. You can look at muscle attachments, even bite force. All of that helps you figure out, was this little guy munching on hard stuff like seeds and twigs? Or was it more of a soft food fan, like leaves?
So it's like they're using the skull as a window into the past.
Exactly, like paleontological detectives, piecing together clues. And in this case, the skull was a bit of a puzzle.
Okay, how so?
Well, this desert rat kangaroo, it has a really robust skull for its size. So at first you think, okay, this guy's a tough food specialist. But then they use this technique called Finite Element Analysis, FEA.
Oh, FEA, right.
It models the stresses and strains on the skull when it bites. And the results, they were surprising.
Okay, now I'm really curious. What did they find? Was our little kangaroo cracking tough desert shrubs? Or was there something else on the menu?
Turns out, despite the sturdy skull, it was better suited for, softer foods. They actually compared it to the skulls of other rat kangaroos with known diets. You got the burrowing bitong, a hard food specialist, and the long-nosed potoroo, more of a fungi lover.
So they were using these other rat kangaroos as benchmarks, and our desert rat kangaroo skull was closer to the fungi-loving potoroo.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real twist. And it changes the game for the search efforts. Instead of looking for signs of, an animal eating tough vegetation, researchers can focus on areas with softer, leafy plants.
So they've narrowed down the search considerably, all thanks to this dietary clue.
Absolutely. It's a great example of how a tiny detail, like the shape of a skull, can unlock a whole lot of information. Like finding a key piece of a puzzle, suddenly the picture becomes clearer.
Right, so instead of searching the whole vast outback, they're focusing on specific plants. It's almost like following a culinary trail.
And it's not just about this one rat kangaroo. This type of research, it helps us understand animal evolution, adaptation, the big picture. They use similar techniques to study dinosaurs, even our own ancestors.
Wow, so studying one species, this tiny rat kangaroo, could actually contribute to our understanding of, life on Earth over vast periods of time.
Exactly. And if they do find this creature, it's like opening a time capsule. We can learn so much about how animals adapt to extreme environments.
Okay, so we've got this dietary clue, this preference for softer foods. Where are the researchers actually looking based on this new information?
Well, you remember those unconfirmed sightings in the Lake Eyre Basin?
Right, that huge arid region.
Yeah, that's become the main focus of the search. But it's not just about wandering around hoping to bump into a desert rat kangaroo.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
It's got to be more targeted, right?
Yeah.
Focusing on areas that match their diet. So are they looking for specific plants or just a general type of environment?
A little bit of both, actually. They're concentrating on areas in the basin with a higher concentration of soft-leafed plants, stuff that might have been part of their historical diet.
So there's some botanical detective work involved, too.
Definitely. They're working with botanists, ecologists, people who can identify these key plants and map out where they're found.
That's got to be a challenge, right? Finding specific plants in a place as huge and, as harsh as the outback.
It is. And it's not just about finding the plants. They're also looking for any signs of the animal itself. Footprints, burrows, droppings, anything.
Wow. So it's like a multi-layered investigation. Botany meets wildlife tracking.
Exactly. And imagine the excitement if they find something, concrete evidence. It would be a huge win for conservation, wouldn't it? It would really show the resilience of nature.
And think of all the scientific information we could gain. A species that was, well, basically lost for decades. It could teach us so much about evolution, adaptation, maybe even how ecosystems are connected.
Absolutely. Studying a species that we thought was gone, it could reveal how animals cope with environmental changes, how they interact, how they contribute to, the overall health of the ecosystem. It could even help us protect other endangered species.
So the desert rat kangaroo isn't just, well, just one species. It's a key to understanding the bigger picture, the web of life.
Right, exactly. It reminds us that biodiversity isn't just about numbers, it's about the unique role each species plays. It's like a tapestry, every thread is important.
Speaking of unique roles, the desert rat kangaroo has obviously adapted to, well, to a really tough environment. What are some of the evolutionary tricks it might have developed to survive out there?
Ah, that's the question, isn't it? And it's got researchers really thinking. Water conservation, for one, would be crucial. Lots of desert animals have amazing ways to minimize water loss. Some have really concentrated urine, others are nocturnal to avoid the heat. Maybe the desert rat kangaroo has taken those adaptations even further.
So even more elusive, maybe only coming out at night to find those juicy leaves.
Could be. And the diet itself might be a key adaptation. Remember those softer foods like leaves? They could be a vital source of not just nutrients, but moisture too.
A two-for-one deal in the desert. But it's not just food and water, right? There are predators to worry about, too.
Of course. Avoiding those predators would be, well, essential. Maybe they have really sharp senses like hearing or smell to detect danger from far away. Or maybe they're incredible burrowers creating these little underground shelters to escape the heat and the predators.
Wow, it's amazing how evolution shapes creatures, right? Their senses, behaviors, even their bodies, all honed to survive.
It really is a testament to natural selection.
Yeah.
And if the desert rat kangaroo is out there, it really embodies that process. Each potential adaptation is like a clue telling us about their incredible journey to survive in such a harsh place.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, if they're so good at hiding, blending in, how did we even know about them in the first place?
That's a great point. Our knowledge really comes from a handful of museum specimens, mostly collected way back in the early 1900s. And those collections, they only give us a very limited view. We don't know much about their behavior, their actual lives.
It's like having a few puzzle pieces, enough to see an outline, but not the whole picture.
Exactly. And that's what makes the search so exciting. It's a chance to fill in those gaps, to really understand this creature and its place in the outback.
It also shows us why ongoing research is so important, even for species that we think are gone.
You got it. Nature is full of surprises. Species can hang on in ways we don't expect. And every rediscovery reminds us that there's always more to learn about the world.
So let's talk about how they're actually searching. What kind of technology are they using to find this master of disguise?
Well, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah, so we've talked about how the desert rat kangaroo might have adapted and why finding it would be so important. But how do you actually track down a creature that's, well, basically a ghost in a massive desert?
That's where technology really steps in. I mean, traditional methods like searching for tracks and scat, those are still useful, but they're not always enough, especially in such a huge, sparsely populated area. So researchers are now using some really cool tools like camera traps and remote sensing.
Camera traps, yeah. I've heard of those being used in wildlife research.
Mhm.
How do they work exactly, and why are they so helpful in this case?
Well, it's pretty simple, really. They're basically cameras that are triggered by motion. You place them in areas where you think the animal might be, and they just sit there silently recording anything that passes by.
So, like, instead of having researchers constantly out there, you've got these silent observers watching 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. And it's perfect for remote areas like the outback where it's hard to, have people constantly searching. And if a desert rat kangaroo happens to wander by, boom, you've got photographic evidence.
That's amazing, and I guess it's less disruptive to the environment than having people tramping all over the place.
For sure. And the best part is they can capture images of all sorts of animals, not just the one you're looking for. So you get a much better understanding of the whole ecosystem.
So win-win for both the researchers and the environment.
Absolutely. And then there's remote sensing. That's another game changer in wildlife research.
Remote sensing.
Yeah, it's basically using satellites or aircraft to gather data about the Earth's surface.
Okay, I get how that's useful for mapping large areas, but how does it help you find a Well, a tiny creature like the desert rat-kangaroo.
Well, you can use remote sensing to analyze things like vegetation patterns, identify potential water sources, even spot subtle changes in the landscape that might suggest animal activity.
So with like having a bird's eye view of the whole search area, you can really focus on the most likely spots.
Exactly. And by combining that data with what they're getting from camera traps and traditional tracking, they can build a really detailed picture of where this animal might be living and, what it's doing.
It's really incredible how technology is changing the way we study wildlife, even in the most remote and challenging environments.
It is, and it's not just about finding this one species. These techniques, they can be applied to conservation efforts all over the world.
Right, so this is a story that's bigger than just the desert rat kangaroo. It's about innovation, collaboration, and I guess just the hope that drives scientific discovery.
Well said. And, for anyone listening who wants to learn more about this, the Flinders University website is a great resource. They've got tons of information about the desert rat kangaroo and the search efforts.
We'll definitely include a link in the show notes. And hey, maybe one of our listeners will be inspired to, join the search or get involved in conservation somehow.
I hope so. The future of the desert rat kangaroo and so many other species really depends on all of us being curious, passionate, and willing to, take action.
It's a good reminder that we all have a part to play in protecting the amazing diversity of life on this planet.
Absolutely. And even if they don't find the desert rat kangaroo, the knowledge gained from this search, it'll be invaluable. It shows us that even when things seem uncertain, the pursuit of knowledge is always worthwhile.
So to wrap up for our listeners, the desert rat kangaroo, a species that was once thought to be gone, might actually still be out there, somewhere in the Australian outback. And researchers are using some seriously cool technology and their understanding of how this animal might have adapted to try and find it.
And while we don't know what the outcome will be, the dedication of these researchers and the innovative approaches they're using, it really gives us hope for this elusive little creature.
Hope not just for the desert rat kangaroo, but for all of us who believe in science, in the resilience of nature, and in the importance of never giving up, even when things seem impossible.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the desert rat kangaroo. We hope you learned something new today, maybe even feel inspired to explore the natural world a little bit more.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep believing in the power of discovery.